I'm Ben Mankiewicz, joined by director Patty Jenkins. Patty, thanks for doing this.
Happy to be here.
Patty has programmed one of our double features tonight. We're opening with The Fisher King from 1991, and here's my first attempt at the title. We'll follow it up with Charlie Kaufman's Synecdoche, New York from 2008 with Philip Seymour Hoffman. So for those people who may not know, Patty is a director who's worked a bunch in television, but mostly what she's known for is Monster, which won Charlize Theron an Academy Award for Best Actress, and the Wonder Woman film from 2017. The movies have far more in common than people might think at first.
I agree. I've lived all over the world and seen all kinds of things and been friends with all kinds of people. So for me, my favorite films were always incredibly diverse. You know, I love comedy. I love very dark, crime thrillers. So it makes perfect sense to me. To me, it's all about the emotion. Right. It's about whatever emotion I'm going for. And actually, if you look at Monster and Wonder Woman together, they're both really anchored on a shifting point of view of a single character. So in a way, they're actually not that different. One is a journey to understanding the hopelessness of the world. The other one is a journey to becoming a hero despite the darkness of mankind.
Let's talk about the first movie that you programmed for us here. From 1991, Robin Williams, Jeff Bridges in The Fisher King. This is a movie that had an impact on you the very first time you see it. It's one of those movies that, like, you remember where you were, you remember the theater, and you remember who else was with you in the theater.
Yeah. I was a college student when I saw it. I had been a punk rocker and was in the hardcore scene in New York City. And so I had a pretty rough...
You were a singer, right?
No, I was, but not very good. I was in a punk band at one point, a singer. So I was with a pretty motley crew of friends, but they happened to be incredibly intelligent, motley crew. And we just wandered in to see it expecting very little. And we were all...
So you didn't know what you were going to see?
We didn't know.
Terry Gilliam?
We thought it's going to be funny or whatever. And we weren't even really thinking about the Terry Gilliam of it all that much.
He was the director.
We just kind of wandered in. And all of us were floored by it. And I think that what was so magical about it was exactly what I love about it to this day. You and I have spoken before about the fact that I like things that can go Monster being a good example, even though it stayed in the darker space, it also had the love story. Yeah. To pull off something romantic without denying the greatest darkness in the world is so incredible. And so I think it was the fact that the film really, it's dealing with such incredibly dark topics. I won't, spoiler it here.
These are deep,
dark topics.
Psychological topics.
And it manages to spin them into a fairy tale with some beautiful magical moments. And so I think that those moments really landed with my group of friends who wouldn't otherwise be open to them because they'd been opened up with such honesty. And I have just never stopped thinking about it. And in fact, I think I've grown to appreciate it more as the years have gone by.
So it's Robin Williams, who, when we are introduced to the movie, is a very compelling homeless person. And Jeff Bridges is a radio shock jock, a DJ in New York with a lot of power, and their paths cross in a couple of different and really interesting ways. So they're at the head of the cast, but Mercedes Ruehl has never done anything except make a movie she's in better. And Amanda Plummer is equally wonderful here.
I couldn't agree more. And they're both playing roles that I can't imagine anyone else playing. Like, they're so specific and so well suited for those roles, and they bring them alive in such a delightful way. They bring such nuance to what those characters are and the love that permeates the story.
The challenges of a story that is a romance, but is also very, very dark, about the darkest places that a person can go, most tragic places that a person can go. And that somehow Terry Gilliam manages to make them work side by side. And it's not just because Robin Williams is so clever. It's not by joke telling, right? I mean, both stories are fully arced and completed and sort of exist side by side. And as I say it out loud, I'm thinking, yeah, that sounds really hard to do without losing your way of what this movie is.
Yeah, tone is such a hard thing to pull off. I think it's one of the hardest things for a director to do that people don't think about. You have to have a very firm handle of what the brand is of this movie and the tone, of what you're writing. And this is a pretty large swath that is evocative of great fairy tales and the history of fairy tales, where you can go into, someone's parents dying and then But how it's done here is masterful. I always think of tone like a ball, where you know what your slice is that you're taking on, but you never want it to drop below the floor level, and you never want it to touch the ceiling. So it really becomes about like the great directors and Terry Gilliam being an amazing director and really shining in this moment. Watching that ball go down and then when and how can you earn back going to comedy? And then when and how, and just keeping that thing moving and then letting it culminate into this beautiful flower emotionally that blooms by the end that's serious work.
I feel like we should watch the movie and
have
a full and complete conversation after we see it. Here it is from 1991, directed by Terry Gilliam. Again, Robin Williams, Jeff Bridges, Mercedes Ruehl, Amanda Plummer, The Fisher King. I'm back with director Patty Jenkins, who chose The Fisher King. Patty is the director of Monster and 2 Wonder Woman films. Patty, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
So movies that give you exactly the end that you hoped for often lose a little something in giving that to you if they have not earned it. And here it feels earned to have them together in Central Park, both back and in healthy, good relationships that obviously make them better.
I couldn't agree more. I've thought about this a lot, about that kind of happy ending. I think in truth, in the world, there's only one story. And that story is the backbone of why we have the sense of story structure that we do, which is you are born into the world knowing nothing. You are given a challenge that you're not sure you want to accept, which is this life. You discover great success and love and beauty. You also get punched in the face and realize that the world is unfair. You discover the incredible darkness of what some people go through. And then you hit your second act, third act break, and you have to decide what your attitude is. Best case scenario, you hit your second act, third act break. And you have to decide what you want to do with that. And the last act is the discovery that it's still beautiful despite all of the darkness in the world. So oftentimes people will look at a big movie that goes the whole way and tells a beautiful ending. And there's been a history of looking down on that. But thinking about that has made me appreciate it more and more when somebody can actually hit all of those points. And you don't have to do this. You can tell Monster is chapter 3. Monster doesn't go the whole way. Right. Monster is about the chapter where you discover the darkness in the world.
Yeah,
and you lose your faith.
And some people can't get out of the darkness.
And can't get out of the darkness. Yeah. But if you look at the older people get, the less they're interested in their identity and who they were and what they are. And the more you just see the birds and the clouds and the love and the memories. And so then a movie like this does the whole story and then that's why that ending is so satisfying, is because you didn't deny anything along the way. And at the end, what really matters? What is the story of the Fisher King? The story is the person who didn't know what they were looking for and in the end found beauty and love because someone needed a glass of water.
Let's talk a bit about the actors in this. Amanda Plummer as Robin Williams' love interest and the great and underutilized Mercedes Ruehl as Jeff Bridges.
In both cases, the imperfection of the story, like, yes, is Robin Williams almost a stalker?
Yeah, right.
But yet this is somebody for Amanda Plummer's character that she's never going to be engaged in a one-on-one with anybody because of how she lives her life. So it almost takes someone seeing that gem in her and pursuing it in that way.
I think it's very clear, too. I mean, yes, it's almost stalking, but as soon as he presents himself to her, if she had said, "Get away from me,"
yeah,
he would have gotten away from her.
Totally.
Like, I mean, there's not a...
No, exactly.
There's no menace in him at all. Jeff Bridges in 1991, in the 1980s as Starman, and into the 70s and The Last Picture Show as sort of his breakout role. And this was a gifted actor from the start. This is one of the great actors of our generation, and I hope we appreciate him.
And likewise, Robin Williams, this was him at the top of his game as well. It was so easy for Robin Williams to be too much and so big, and he never was because he was actually such an incredible actor. He always found his place. But this was a role that let him go again all the way to the furthest high comedy that he could do, and yet it was so grounded with spirit and tragedy that it never left what it should be. It never left the tone it should be.
Patty Jenkins, you're the best. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
The good news is Patty has another film coming up tonight that she's programmed, and I said it right the first time, but I think Patty's going to have to do it. What's the next movie, Patty?
Synecdoche, New York, which takes a while to get used to saying, but it's a classic masterpiece of a movie.
It is next on TCM.
Next on TCM, Synecdoche, New York. Then Follow Me Quietly. And later, Murder, She Said. Crack the Case with TCM Tonight.